Breakout session number 2, Rise of Good Tourism. It is with great pleasure to introduce our session moderator, Mr. Andrew Jones, who over the past 40 years has worked in a number of senior management and corporate positions in prestigious hotels, resorts, management companies in London, Bermuda, Canada, and several countries in Asia. In '96, Andrew started a new journey when he founded and became guardian of Sanctuary Resorts, a company that offers responsible and sustainable tourism experiences where people can balance their body, mind, and spirit in an environmentally friendly space. Andrew was previously Director Asia Pacific Affairs for the International Hotel and Restaurant Association and a member of the board of the Indian Ocean Tourism Organization. Andrew is a certified hotel administrator of the American Hotel and Lodging Association, and he's also a member of the World Travel Market World Responsible Tourism Day Advisory Panel. Andrew is a great supporter of PATA. Andrew contributed substantially to the success of PATA's Adventure, Travel and Responsible Tourism Conference and Mart in Nepal. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andrew Jones.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're just waiting for the rest of the crowd to come in. I'm sure they'll be coming along shortly. Because we want to make this a lively, an interactive debate and discussion. So first of all, what I'd like to do is invite the panelists up here, and I'll introduce them as we go, and then we will have some short presentations, and then we'll get into the question and answers. So if I could ask Mr. Xu to come up, and then I will introduce him. Mr. Xu Jinwei is president of the Mount Huangshan Tourism Development Company Limited, and as well as serving as president of Huangshan Tourism Development Co. Limited, Mr. Xu has been a member of Huangshan Municipal CPC Standing Committee, party secretary of Huangshan Scenic Area Administrative Committee, and chairman of Huangshan Tourism Group. He has extensive operating management knowledge and experience, and is considered a visionary in advancing the Huangshan development concept. Under his leadership, Huangshan Tourism Group has been adhering to the general strategy of sustainability and diversity in tourism development, and persisting in reforming and being innovative in the development to perfect its modern enterprise system. The aim of protecting the cultural and natural habitat of Mount Huangshan Scenic Site is uppermost in its development process, and it is committed to making development benefits not only for the local people, but for other communities and multiple stakeholders. All of these things lead to the social benefits provided by the group increasing while the scope of business expands. Huangshan Tourism Group has been acknowledged and listed in China's top 500 enterprises in the service industry, and also China's top 100 enterprises on taxation, and China's top 100 companies continuously strong increase in business. So we have a very knowledgeable person here to assist us in our discussions today. Our next panelist, yes, you can welcome Mr. Xu with a round of applause. Our next panelist is Stefan Foccio. Did I get that right, Stefan? Or Stefan to his friends, who is the Regional Coordinator for Resource Efficiency for the UNEP. Stefan is an expert on sustainable development and currently serving as the Regional Coordinator on Resource Efficiency for the United Nations Environment Programme in the Asia-Pacific region. Under his portfolio, he is coordinating the regional implementation of UNEP's initiatives on sustainable consumption and production, relations with the industry, green economy, CSR and sectoral issues with a focus on tourism, building and construction, waste and water sectors. His professional experience includes assignments for the European Commission and work for the private sector and posts in research and academic institutes. He brings to us a lot of involvement and expertise in these areas, and he's been a leading expert in coordinating the development of the global sustainable tourism criteria. He has also been among the core coordinators for the establishment of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and has been chosen by Condé Nast Traveller as one of the 10 international sustainable tourism advocates and watchdogs. He has a degree in forestry, a PhD in natural resources economics, and a master in information systems. So he brings a lot of knowledge and input for this afternoon session. Thank you, Steph. Now, on the program, we did have Justin Francis from ResponsibleTourism.com, but unfortunately, Justin couldn't make it at the last minute. And because we wanted to bring a little bit of youth and activity into our session, we engaged Mr. George Joseph to come in. And George is the General Manager of Operations for a group out of India called CGH Earth. And you will know from the Gold Awards that they won one of the Gold Awards yesterday in the luncheon. So we're going to ask George to share with us some of his experiences and what he and his group are doing in India, and get a little bit of a more youthful perspective on things that way. I'm going to say just a few opening remarks, and then we're going to ask Stefan to give us a short presentation, and then, as I say, we'll get into some questions and answers and move forward. So, for those of you who have spent the last couple of days in the sessions, you will have got a lot of information about PATA and the past and the present and the progressive. When PATA was established, the principles of peace and cooperation were heralded as the ways of conducting tourism in the Pacific Asia region. Over the years, PATA has extolled the virtues of ecotourism, responsible and sustainable tourism, and identified these as key trends and initiatives to support. PATA has a Sustainability and Social Responsibility Committee, and also an Education and Training Committee, which sort of coordinates and supports each other in these areas. PATA holds an Adventure Travel and Responsible Tourism Conference in March. The last two have been in Nepal, and I've been very fortunate to participate in those. And we've heard from the students and members of PATA during this conference on how important these topics are to them. And some of you will remember yesterday in the session Fiona's vision, which was about social, cultural, and economic factors of the future. These efforts have been put forward as one of the pillars of the future strategic plan for PATA. So what is this all about? And where do we as PATA go from here? This discussion and debate is to help PATA further develop its actions and plans. And I stress action in the plans for these important and timely issues. With input from our panel, it is now time for you as members of PATA to have your say. And questions and short statements are welcome throughout this session. So let's try and make this interactive. I would like now to ask Stefan to give us a short presentation, and then we can move forward with some more questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Can I have the remote control, please? Can I suppose you hear me? No? Maybe now? No? Microphone is okay now?
No, can't hear.
Can't hear.
Put on the time.
You can hear now?
If you need to check it on.
No. So I have to bring it
I think
closer.
yeah.
Much closer? Yes, okay.
Just get
I mean, the next thing is to swallow it, yeah? I don't know if I swallow it.
Maybe the mic is the mic.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much, PATA, that has invited the United Nations Environment Programme in this conference. Before I start, I got a volunteer. That he has to step out of the room for 5 minutes and do something for me. And I'm not going to pick up one, but if someone of you wants to go to the next room to see how many people we have in the distribution and how many in the technology, and give me the number, because at the end I'll make a comment on this number. So what I want to do today is to give an outline on what we believe that could be good tourism. And I'm not going to insist on labels, I'm not going to insist on trademarks, but on some thoughts. No, that was too short. That's not good yet, because it goes directly to the last
Slide.
slide.
It was a short presentation.
That was very Thank you. So, just as an introduction, this is more or less what we have in our mind, at least in unit, when we talk about sustainable tourism, the 3 pillars, economic, social, and environmental, and some principles we have developed. But it's not so much, I think, about definitions, but it's how sustainable tourism is looking at the assets for tourism development. And when we talk about assets for tourism development, I like to use a classification which is not mine, it's not UNEP's, it's something that UNESCO has done. And say, okay, let's see assets on 2 dimensions. We can have tangible and intangible assets for tourism development, and we can have fixed and mobile assets. To give some examples, objects are mobile assets, and they are tangible. You touch them, you feel them. On the other corner, landscapes are intangible, because you cannot touch a landscape, but you can feel something. But they are fixed, they are there. You cannot move the landscapes, even if many development companies today they try to move landscapes. Traditions, intangible, mobile, because they are traveling. Facilities, fixed and tangible things for assets for tourism development. So what tourism is doing, and of course, with the center of everything, humans, the biggest asset for tourism development. So what tourism is doing is using these resources, using these assets to create products and services for the tourists. And of course, when you use some assets, you improve them, but at the same time you have some negative impacts. So what's the point? The point, I think, is we need to have a kind of argument on what do we think is the overall concept that defines the tourism. And I think that the main argument when it comes to the relation between tourism and assets, tourism and resource management, is that the survival of tourism development, and please note the word survival, I'm not saying sustainability, depends on the patterns of consumption of resources, natural, social, economic, and the consumption of tourism products and services. The way we consume our resources will define how much tourism we have after 20, 30, 50, or 100 years. And the way we consume the tourism products, it will define how many tourists will be acceptable after 20, 30, 50, or 100 years. It is a consumption problem, mainly, but usually it's addressed with production-based solutions and with behavioral change. What we think are the needs? Tourism uses assets, so we need to measure the impacts, both with qualitative and quantitative approaches. Yesterday we had this fantastic session with the students that they gave examples on how we can measure in the future. To develop a framework for, I call it sustainable tourism, you want to call it good tourism, I'm fine with this. Create tools for the governments, for industry and the consumers, and basically implement. Walk the talk and not only talk the talk. Do we have solutions? We heard this morning that the carbon footprint of tourism is about 5%. And I have to tell you there's another figure behind this 5%. The carbon footprint is 5%, but there's something else that is called the warming effect, which is about 10%. Because you know much of the aviation emissions are at a very, very, very high level, and it creates a much bigger warming effect. But for me, the point is not the number, if it's 5 or if it's 10. If it's there, I think it should be reduced. And what we know is that today, with the current technology, we can reduce the tourism carbon footprint by almost 35%. And this is technology that is available in the market. I'm not talking about laboratory technology here. This is, you can go out and you can buy it. And I'll give you another figure. We have cases, we have proof that this technology can have a payoff period as low as 4 or 5 months. You can make an investment on low carbon technology in your hotel, and have your money back after 5 months, and then making profit after this. But 35% is not enough. If we want to be compatible with what Jeffrey Lippman said this morning, a carbon neutral tourism by 2050, we need more. And we need some behavioral change. And I talk about the behavioral change in my last slide. Okay. If we combine technology and behavioral change, we can go up to a 45%. If you cannot, please play with the laptop or with the PC. Main challenge is aviation. I think we listen a lot of things in the morning. I think it's a sector that should catch up. And in UNEP, what we have done, we have a big program. We have created a global sustainable tourism partnership with a lot of initiatives like this. I'm not going to explain this, and I'm not going to give detailed information. Please visit unep.org and go to tourism. You will see what we do. I want to start to wrap up and say what I think is a tourism for the future, and to give 5 main elements. First element, I think it's tourism that should serve human well-being and not human value. And why I'm saying this? When we made the study about tourism and climate change, and we came up with the 5% global emissions, somebody asked me, so are you going to tell me that you're going to stop tourists from Europe visiting developing countries like Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and giving money and creating jobs there? And I said, no, I don't want to stop this thing. But you know, there's something that I think it's not about well-being, it's about vanity. It's a super rich person taking a plane from Paris at Friday, 7 o'clock in the evening, flying to New York to have dinner, and then flying back to Paris. And you know how much segment is this one. Yeah? So this is what I call vanity. And I don't want to talk about ethics, but I believe that this is the kind of thing that we can do better. Another thing about vanity. Yesterday morning, we were listening about space tourism. First of all, you are all tourism professionals, and I think you know the definition of tourism by the United Tourism Organization. It says that we need to have at least one overnight. So are these people that are going to fly in space, have an overnight in space? We call it tourism, yeah? Fine, I agree with that. But as it was described yesterday, I think it's not tourism. You're going to call it entertainment, you're going to call it adventure, but don't only call it tourism, because I think it's a kind of disgrace for the tourism industry itself. Second, protect and conserve the natural environment. Why? Because we have to be politically correct? No. Because the natural environment, I think it is a main asset for tourism development. Google the websites of the tourism agencies in many countries, and you will see the main picture that comes, it's a picture of the natural environment. Third element, support local business and create local employment and work with communities. This is a kind of vision we have for what can be a good tourism for the future, what could be sustainable tourism. And to answer one question that I might have later, does it make sense for business, for economic efficiency? I think yes, because you decrease the cost of handling impacts when you go the sustainable way, so you increase profits. And at the same time, you conserve your assets, so you assure future profits, and you diversify the tourism products, and you target new markets, so you generate new profits. We have the proof today that sustainable tourism makes sense from an economic point of view, and actually sustainable tourism is good business. On my paper now. 39 people in the distribution and 46 in technology. We are not very competitive, yeah? And that's our big, I will not say complaint, but this is why sometimes we are a little bit sad.
Challenge.
Challenge, yes. And you know, I'm thinking that every time we will put the industry in front of the choice, the good or the distribution or the technology, will go mainly with the distribution of the technology. And it's fine because it's industry and they want to survive and they want to create profits. So the point for me is, we should start looking at the sustainability of tourism not as one component, not as one thematic topic, but as a kind of umbrella that it will work together with distribution, together with marketing, together with technology, to give the good tourism of the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Okay. Now, we termed this session, I say we, the part of termed the session, Good Tourism. And I have to put up my hand and say, I may be responsible for that terminology. Because during the part of Adventure Travel and Responsible Tourism conference in March, we were looking for a topic. So I chose the theme, Doing Well and Doing Good. Meaning, you have a profitable business that does well in the community. You do well as a business and you give back doing good in the community. And I think that's where this good tourism maybe terminology came up. But my first sort of question to the panel is, is there a difference between just good tourism or responsible sustainable or ecotourism? And are these labels, or do we see these as actual trends for the industry? Are they going to be sustainable trends for the industry? So maybe, I should have a little housekeeping item here. We don't have simultaneous translation in here. Mr. Xu speaks Mandarin, Putonghua, and so we have a gentleman who's volunteered to be our translator. So maybe I would so it's going to take a little bit of extra time to just work through that process, so if you bear with us. But the question is good tourism or responsible sustainable tourism, are these just marketing labels, or are they actual trends for the future for our industry? We see them as sustainable trends.
和以前所提的生态旅游啊，还有绿色旅游啊，是一个新的概念，是他提出来的。那么他想请你谈一谈呢，三星旅游是这些概念的一个仅仅是一个标签呢，还是旅游的一个新的未来的发展方向？
善意旅游是他所提出的一个全新的概念，是在生态旅游、绿色旅游、低碳旅游、可持续发展旅游的基础上提出的一个新概念。
To my understanding, that good tourism is a new terminology that right after the green tourism, low carbon tourism, and the ecotourism.
我的理解呢，这个善行旅游的核心还是可持续旅游。
But I think that the essence of good tourism is still for the sustainability of tourism in the future.
可持续旅游强调的是这个发展环境的持续性，发展效率、福利性和发展机会的公平性。善性旅游呢，是更加强调多元化价值，更加强调高效的认知，还有呢，这个善性旅游呢，更加注重传承历史和创新未来相结合。
To carry out sustainable tourism, environmental protection, the social and economic benefits, and the well-being of the public interests shall be best preserved. But here, good tourism, I think that it emphasizes more on the creation of new technology and the management measures and better policies to preserve the natural environment.
我认为这个善性旅游不仅仅是一个概念，更不是一个标签。
So in this sense, good tourism is not only it's not at all a new label. It's more like a concept due for future.
它是一个，应该说它是在前面讲的这个生态旅游、绿色旅游、可持续发展旅游还有低碳旅游，在这个基础上，它是符合旅游发展的新趋势、新观点、新要求。
It will be the new trend for the future after what we call ecotourism or green tourism.
善性旅游它将引领我们对旅游目的地以及亚太的旅游做一些创新性的思考。
We will need to relative measures for the tourism development in Asian Pacific area and in a better future.
也会包括旅游企业等利益相关者，还有亚太体以及全球的旅游业注入新的活力。
and I think there will be a new drive for other stakeholders in other parts of the world as well.
另外我想说的呢，善意旅游与中国政府提出来的和谐社会的理念是完全一致。
One more word that the good tourism is in complete line complement with the Chinese government's policy of building tourism as a pillar industry in the future.
That's great. I think that's a real good stimulus for China and for an example for some of the other countries of the world to follow too. So I think that's very good. Stefan, any comments on that? Or?
A small one. I'm going to give a comment as unit and then as an individual, if you allow me, actually. As unit, we prefer to say that we think that the most inclusive term is the term of sustainable tourism. And sustainable tourism includes all other concepts as responsible tourism, good tourism, green tourism. On a personal level, I don't have really a problem as a professional in sustainable tourism. I don't have a problem if we attach new names. Because giving new names, it's maybe a good opportunity to revitalize some things. But I have a question. If we say that we focus on good tourism, at the same time we admit that most part of the other tourism is bad tourism. Yeah? And we have to say why it's bad, and to find out how we can make it good. What I like in the idea of good tourism is that it's applicable everywhere, in any segments of the tourism industry. Because when we talk about ecotourism, about nature-based tourism, are specific segments of the industry. And I think the power of the label good tourism is the application all over the industry. My only comment, for me the point is not in the terminology, but it is on what we do. And I hope that all these new labels are used to implement good actions and not just to put it as a label that it will give only some visibility.
George?
Well, yeah, I agree with him regarding what is bad tourism and good tourism. I think it's a very powerful word, good tourism, because that's the opposite of bad. You don't want to be a bad tourist. So it's like in the past when people used to wear mink fur, which used to be considered the coolest thing. But now, if you're seen with it, you get beaten. So, I mean, it's the same. I think it's the same relationship which is happening right now. The more the words, the more the phrases like good tourism, responsible tourism, I feel it's all the same. But more of them coming into the open, it shows that there is a demand, there is a market, and there is great business opportunity for that. And I think it is the same. I mean, if the question was, is it the same or not? I think it's the same, but it's good that we have names popping up like that.
All right. And the floor is open for questions at any time if you want to ask anything. Now, when we talk about good tourism or responsible sustainable tourism, we always just, as it sort of happened this morning, it's like it's the other guys, and whose job is it? Is it a government job to do that? Is it party's job to do that? Is it individual's job or industry? who are the major stakeholders, and what part do they play? Whose responsibility is it to push these agendas, do you think? Is it you as individual businesses, or you as a United Nations program, or who do you think should be really driving this process? You want to start, Yunel?
I think it's a collective responsibility. And definitely when it comes to activities and implementation, all actors, governments, industry, IGOs, NGOs, research and academic community have their own role. Now the question for me is how you make this thing happen, and who is the one to kick off the ball. Yeah? And there is a kind of prevailing approach saying that consumers are the ones that they can change things, because if consumers start to demand more responsible, more good, more sustainable tourism, then the industry will respond. I tend to have another opinion, and to say that it's the big players of the industry that they can really kick off this thing, and it's the big players of the industry that they can mainstream and upscale the good tourism. Because usually they do act as role models. And if they give a very clear signal that good and sustainable tourism is good business, I think they can kick off mainstreaming good tourism. If you take this with good governmental support and with education, as we listed in the previous sector, for tourists, for tourism professionals, I think we have a very, very good mix.
George? Yeah, I would agree to it's a collective responsibility. It's I think as a tourist, there is much more priority from a tourist point of view that he's got to be more responsible in what he wants. His expectations needs to change now. There are hotels which cater to the people who would want everything, but there are hotels which limit them to have what is good for them. So I think as an entrepreneur, I'm talking from my experience, as a eco-friendly, responsible tourism, from that field, we do say, hell with the customer. How do we implement it? I mean, every time there's a lot of talking going on, a lot of seminars, a lot of conferences. So finally it comes to when do you implement it? And I think we, as an individual, it is our responsibility. I mean, whoever maybe the government, maybe the tourist, maybe the hotel entrepreneur, it is the one's duty to implement it. So the responsibilities of spreading this is with all. That's my.
See, that's why we need younger people, more active. Mr. Xu.
我感觉到善意旅游啊，它的内涵和外延都很丰富，又是未来旅游发展的新趋势。
As I said, that the good tourism is going to be the new trend of the future. It has four meanings, rich meanings.
OK， 善行旅游的推广需要各个相关利益者共同来努力，通力协作。
I agree with the other two speakers that the promotion of this good tourism involves every stakeholders involved, involves their all the stakeholders.
主要的是有6个方面来起主导作用。第一呢是政府部门主要是从政策的制定、规划的指导来关注善行旅游，更好的统筹协调各个不同方面的利益的诉求。
To break it down, I think that there are 6 major players. The first one is the government, of course. The government, in the decision making, they can formulate and promote policies, make policies that in favor of good tourism or sustainability.
第二个方面就是旅游企业，旅游企业要提供符合善行旅游要求的多样化旅游产品和高品质的旅游服务。
The second player is the entrepreneurs or tourist industry, tourism industries. They should provide a variety of products to satisfy the customers' needs.
第三个呢就是社区的公众要积极参与，共同营造善行旅游的良好氛围。
And the third player is the local communities.
第4个呢就是教育和科技，教育作为 引导、宣传，尤其是着重是引导。科技呢是要为善行旅游的明天提供一些技术支撑和能力建设。
Education and technology certainly plays another important role in the promotion of good tourism. In education, they can change the tourists' mind, ideas, views, and expectations. And new technology will ensure the practice and the achievement of the realization of the purpose.
还有就是传播媒体要在宣传和引导各个利益相关者的行为，这样呢是做一些宣传和引导工作，使这个善行旅游呢能够渐入人心。
Of course, media plays another important role. It can also lead us and shape our expectations to help people understand what is to be expected in the future tourism.
最后一个很重要，也就是这个我们旅游者本身，也是一支重要的推动力。这个旅游者本身呢，他需要呢更加的尊重自然，尊重当地的文化，还有呢尊重我们的旅游从业者。
Last but not least, are the tourists themselves. They should not only respect the local culture, protect the natural environment, and also they should show due respect to the tourist practitioners.
明日旅游呢，需要我们这些利益相关者共同努力，来推动善行旅游向前发展，推动的亚太旅游的发展和繁荣。
It is my belief that if all the players work together, I think that the future of tourism will be quite different and more sustainable.
Thank you. That's good. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, then I really want you guys to liven up and start to ask some questions, because you'll only get out of this session what you put into it as well. So if there's things that's in your mind and you want to say, okay, stand up and say something, then now's the time. But I really want to ask George why he and his family put together this green book, and what drove them as hoteliers doing some very nice resorts. And I've seen their resorts in India. Why? Why did you go this way in terms of responsible and sustainable?
I think it was more of the what we are. I mean, we did not know what are the other routes. This is the only route that we knew. I mean, before getting into hotels, before 50s, my grandfather, it's a family-run business. They are planters, very much close to nature. So that blood, I think that is still there in the family. And it is more of the way of thinking. It is not about the profitability. I mean, it is also about the profitability, but that never happened to be our primary source, the first priority. It was doing it right. And doing it right would give us the right benefits. And well, it's going good because we are growing from 1 to now we are 12 hotels in the past 10 years. And we have a very it's a small family, so we are very happy with how it is going. But when it comes to ecotourism, I mean, we really do invest a lot and see the end result of how much ROI is going to be. For example, the next project that we are going to do is one of our resorts. We are planning to use technology, converting the entire resort into photovoltaic. So run the entire hotel in solar power. So there is a huge cost to it, but then we see a lot of good benefit of. I mean, like you said, 35% carbon reduction is in fact there's more than 35% carbon reduction. But the cost of maintaining is not much. I mean, only the maintenance drops down. It's more about being compliant to it for yourself, for us.
It's a passion.
It's a passion.
Yeah, a lot of the times when you're talking to people in these forums, it's really the passion and the interest that really comes through, and sometimes that's the driving force. but it also has to be based on a business perspective. Because if you're not profitable, you're not sustainable, and if you're not sustainable, you're not around to do the good work you want to do. So it should be based on that business premise as well, I believe. That's the way I look at it anyway. Now, at the end of this session, we want to go back to PARTA, to the Secretariat, and say, look, we were talking about these things. This is what the members would like to see, or this is what we should be focusing on as PARTA in the future, because we want to look at the progressive part of it. Is there anybody here who would like to share with us what they would like to see PARTA to do in terms of responsible sustainability or doing the good things? And I'm going to start with Bert, because I know he's a good fellow.
Thank you. I wonder who in this room has seen PARTA's Sustainable Charter? One. Two. We have in PARTA a Sustainable Charter, which was very cleverly, I call it, ran through the meeting by John King a year ago, where most PARTA members board members still had a hangover, and they approved something they never realized what they approved. What are we doing these days? Everything that's in that charter, we're not doing. We drink water from plastic bottles. We wear suits, so we need air conditioning. We have light bulbs that are eating electricity. And I could go on and on. I have 5 kilos of paper in my room that I will have to somewhere carry back. So I think PARTA and most of their members are dreaming and are not talking, or are talking but not walking. And I think it's a shame, and I think we all should be ashamed that we do support and do attend this kind of meetings, and we should tell PARTA to get their act together. In other words, normally when I hear green, I see red.
Thank you. Good. No problem. I think that's...
Well, it is a problem.
Well, yeah, I understand that. No problem in you voicing that concern, and I think that is something that we will take back to PARTA and see what we can do about that. And I think that's the purpose of these forums. It's not just to sit there and listen to, these issues being discussed and nothing happens. I think Peter said that in his session about being more active. And the other thing is, I mean, it was very interesting listening to Jeffrey Lippman this morning. I actually liked his presentation a lot. And it was interesting that he was saying that, what were the focuses in the past and what is the focuses in the future, like people and food and water for the future. Wars will be fought about water in the future. I just came from Bali, and in certain areas they're having some water shortages in those areas, and they're still developing. So, these issues are not going to go away, they're just getting, more focused. So I think we as tourism professionals need to address some of these things, and then it's how we do that, and what are the mechanisms, and what role does PARTA play? I mean, you don't want to come every year and listen to the same old thing going on, right? That's not the purposes of these forums. It's so that we can gather information from members, exchange information, and then implement programs that help support that. Then you get value out of your membership too. So I think that's very important.
I don't think it's what role, it's how we're going to play it. I think we know what role we should play, but we're not doing it. So I think that's what we should put to the floor.
Okay. Any other comments at this time? I want to ask a question then to the panelists, because I get some mixed messages sometimes. Sometimes people say there is a growing trend for people and companies to say, I'm going to this destination or to this place because it's doing environmentally friendly things, or my company's charter says I need to support these type of activities. Is that something that you think is a benefit to your organization or for the hotels, or do you see that as a trend happening in your organizations? So the question quite simply is, are industries benefiting by doing these good things? Is there a trend that tourists say, I'm going to take this tour or I'm going to go on this package because either there is an offset there or there is, this hotel is carbon neutral or whatever it says it is. Do you see that as a shift in travel or a growing momentum? Or is it just a nice idea? So, George, you got a business.
To be being in the hotel, to be frank, I'm quite sad that the rate it's going is not very good. That not many people they go to a travel agent and they just take this. But there is a few clientele which is, I'm not saying it's totally not there. In our hotel, this is my experience. We cater to a niche called AIT, which is Alert Independent Traveler, who is aware, who knows, and not just who wants to come just for a holiday and go back. I mean, we want that niche to come and participate in the community, to see, to learn the local culture, architecture, whatever. I mean, the entire education need to give. That's why travelers are traveling. I mean, to learn. So when they go back, it is the memory which takes them. It is the memory which brings them back. If they have a good memory of the destination, that brings them back, and that memory is through the experience, is through the intangibles. So there are a lot of people that we see of that sort, which is coming, but then sadly, there are a lot of group traveling, there are a lot of travel operators not really following up with what is our requirement. They just want to sell the hotels. So we can't stop people by not coming. So I think it is growing, but not in the right speed.
Stefan, any comment on that?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer, but because frankly I don't know if the trend is real or if the trend it has been created just a kind of illusion. I hope that it's real and I hope that it can be scaled up, but I think to be scaled up it really needs to go to the mainstream operation of the businesses. So it cannot be kept as a small niche, because it should not be a small niche. It should be mainstream in the whole business operation.
I'd be very interested from the Chinese perspective if that is a trend in terms of driving business to the the destination. Yeah.
他说大北山经营从中国方面这种新的旅游的这种兴起会不会给我们这种旅游目的地带来更多的游客，或者是说因为我们倡导的是绿色的、环保的、可持续的旅游，那么会给我们的目的地吸引更多的游客吗？会不会成为一种趋势？
我认为能够明日这个上行旅游能够给旅游目的地带来更多。
First of all, I would say that our practice of green and sustainable tourism has attracted more tourists from our business.
因为这个上行旅游从概念上来说，它比绿色旅游、生态旅游还有这个低碳旅游，它的要求更高，观念更新，更符合现代人的要求。
Because what we advocated in good tourism will be more appealing to the potential tourists, because many of them are very environmentally aware, conscious. More people are environmental conscious now.
像中国的黄山是世界著名的旅游目的地。
Huangshan, where I work, for example, is a well-known tourist destination.
这些年呢，黄山坚持在确保世界遗产资源原真性和完整性的前提下，充分满足人们的文化和审美需求，推动 旅游目的地的可持续发展。
So in the past 30 years, Huangshan as a World Culture and Natural Heritage Site, we have done quite a lot of things to protect, to ensure the best protection of the authenticity and the integrity of this heritage.
我们在推行可持续旅游，也就是善行旅游的实践中，我们推出了环境影响最小化、经济影响最大化、社会效益最优化、游客体验最佳化的理念。
What we have been doing in line with the aim that we try to achieve, that is to maximize the minimize the impact on the environment and the maximization of the social and economic benefits, and to optimize the tourist expectation and experience.
正是坚持这样的理念，所以每年黄山接待的游客是逐年增多。
And we can see that over the past years, visitors coming to Huangshan are increasing year after year.
当然，黄山风景区本身它作为一个旅游目的地，它有一个很完整的、很权威的一个总体规划，对游客是有一定限制，特别是旅游高峰。
Of course, here comes a problem how to control the tourist flow in peak seasons. We have also worked out very efficient ways to balance the peak season and the slow season.
简单的说，善行旅游就是旅游业的明天。
I believe that if we uphold good tourism, to develop tourism sustainably, I think that the future of tourism will be bright.
中国黄山有一些很好的实践，可供借鉴。
And we have come up with lots of good practices to develop tourism as well as conserve the natural resources. And we would like to share with people, other partners.
Thank you. One last question from me, and if there's any others from the floor, I'm happy to take questions from the floor. But Parta has been talking about whether or not we need an accreditation system. Be part of a global. Is that something that we should be considering, Parta? So I thought Stefan would be on there.
Well, I love this question because I have the shortest possible answer. Yes, we need. Yes, we need. Yes, we need. And this is why 4 years ago we put a very big partnership involving UNEP. Actually, it's one of the smallest partnerships, but involving the UN World Tourism Organization, about 10 business associations, non-governmental organizations, and the academic community, created the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria, and 2 months ago launching the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which its job will be to accredit, to create a global accreditation system. And just for clarity, I think we all understand that we're talking about accrediting certifiers and not making final certification. So I would strongly encourage Sparta to see how the system developed by the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria could be probably applied at the Asia Pacific level.
You'd be happy to join, right?
Yeah, accreditations, I think it's a good idea, but you should also be careful on who the accreditation is from. I mean, if you're talking about Pata, maybe, yeah, that's a good, good association. But there are a lot of accreditation companies which is money racket game they play. I mean, you come, I accredit you as a green stand, and I give you, you pay them up so much money. So there's a lot of racket, but it's good. It is required, it is a must. But then the right players should be there, and the wrong players, the bad players should be weeded out. I mean, that partner should take care of that, weeding out the bad players.
那问的问题呢，就是说是不是在可持续旅游发展上面要制定一个标准，然后呢，大家去遵循。Mr. Fogel 先生呢提到了这个 GSTC， 你看看，这个在这个方面黄山 在这个对这个制定这个可持续标准方面。
我认为随着善行旅游的兴起，应该有一个标准，有一个规范，这样子呢，让更多的利益相关者能够共同去追寻出真实。另外呢，也进一步规范善行旅游的健康发展。
I agree that the standard or kind of criteria, practical, should be formulated and to be implemented in, worldwide.
随着旅游业的发展，人们对旅游标准化的重视，或者说旅游标准化在旅游行业中的应用越来越广泛，越来越引起这个旅游者的重视。
It will be once this criteria led by the UNWTO, it will be more accepted and popular. Will be popular and accepted criteria.
黄山风景区的做法呢，是在保护管理和旅游管理的各个环节，总结了一整套完整的标准化概念，一共有55900条。
In fact, in the past years, Huangshan has formulated its own standard to regulate some practices, and these regulations and standards has amounted to 50,000 words.
黄山风景区是作为GSTC， 也就是全球旅游可持续委员会的成员。GSTC 发现黄山做了这些标准化的工作，他感觉到非常有作用，所以他把旅游标准化的建设的一部分工作，让黄山风景区来参与。
In fact, Huangshan is a member of the GSTC, and he himself is a member of the expert team in the destination stewardship, destination work group.
当然，这也是一个很好的例证，因为GSTC 呢，它也没有一个很完整的关于旅游方面的一个标准化的东西，它需要呢，它可能有一些研究，它需要呢，在找一个旅游目的地来得到验证，那黄山就是很好的验证。
Huangshan will be one of the pioneer sites to practice to implement, and finally, with the revisions, it will be spread out.
Thank you. Great. Okay. I was just going to wrap up, and I see a hand from the back wants to ask a question. I can't say no to Ms. Samoa. Yeah? So, please ask your question. I don't know if you've got a still microphone. But...
Thank you. There's a lot of talk about the larger countries here at this conference, but being from the Pacific and not just representing my country, but a lot of the Pacific Islands, there's a lot of operators there that don't know what PATA is or what there is that they offer. And I was just wondering if they're able to come over to the Pacific Islands and provide workshops or programs to the local operators, especially on sustainable tourism development, just to help out in that area, because it is very vital for our tourism industry.
Right. I can't really speak for PATA, but Marianne can. But I can say that I'm sure there are a number of people in PATA that will be happy to help.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this is something you would like us to further proceed, no problem. We'll discuss it with our Sustainable and Social Responsibility Committee, and I'm sure that there are a couple of members who would be able to provide some support there.
I had some closing remarks. I'm going to scrap that because we've run out of time. But, and I want to thank the panel, and I'd like you to thank them also in the usual way. Thank you very much. But I do want to say that although we haven't had a lot of interaction today, to be honest with you, there is a group in PATA that is really committed to responsible sustainable tourism. that really wants to make that difference and that really is going to take action. So if you want to be a part of that, then please hang in there, and we will get to you one way or the other to encourage and support and nurture those initiatives throughout the organization. Okay? So thank you for attending. Please enjoy the coffee break now, and we'll do some interaction. And I'm going to hand over to Marion for the housekeeping.
Thank you, Andrew. Just a very quick one. On behalf of PATA, thank you very much to all the panelists. In particular, and I would like you to translate this, our sincere thanks to Mr. Zhu Xu of the Huangshan Tourism Development Company Limited for his participation and great contribution. And certainly our sincere thanks go to all the other panelists, Mr. Stefanos Fotio from UNEP, Mr. George Joseph from CGH Earth, and our great moderator, Mr. Andrew Jones.